And thank you very much for joining us here on PM Express. And as you know, many across the country today queued to try and get a voters register, to get onto the voters roll for December 7. There is a story evolving of challenges that the Electoral Commission had to deal with today. And many raising concerns about its impact on the credibility and inclusiveness of the voters roll because, of course, first-time voters, those who turned 18, want to get onto the roll, but they face some challenges. The Electoral Commission says they have resolved these challenges as of 12 noon. But let's look ahead. Today is just day one, but there are big questions around the credibility of the voters register, but also ensuring that it is inclusive, that everybody can get onto it. Now, this is the number that the Electoral Commission is looking forward to registering when it comes to prospective voters this year during this period, during this limited voter registration exercise. 632,000 prospective voters the EC wants to get onto the roll this year for election 2024. And also we know that the Electoral Commission is going to be working during this period, May 7, which started today, all the way to May 27. And they'll be doing this on a rotational basis. So the team of EC officers will not be in one location throughout the period. And so we're hearing concerns now raised by EOCO, for example, that for those who have lost out today, who traveled far distances to get to the polling stations, to get to the registration centers, but were unable to register because of the myriad of challenges that the systems face today. What happens to them? Because they've lost a day already. Will the Electoral Commission consider extending this particular period? But remember that the EC, they have a target, and a target that is influenced by another number that we are chewing upon. This is according to the Population and Housing Census. When they did that census, we estimated that we have 2.7 million Ghanaians who have turned 18 since the last elections, right? And that number, the Electoral Commission wants to get a significant chunk of this number onto the voters' roll with this particular registration exercise. And I want to put it in context because remember the Electoral Commission has been over the period. Last year before the district level elections, did a limited voter registration exercise. So they've already managed to get in, for example, around the time the target versus the actual in the last registration exercise in 2020, they had a target of 700,000 fresh prospective voters. They ended up getting 911,000 voters, new voters onto the roll. So they exceeded the target that they gave themselves, which is a very good thing. The Electoral Commission has been doing a very good job at this. At least if you look at the 2013 figure that they managed to get, comparing the target versus the actual, they've done some great work there. And they had this margin there of the surplus of 211,000 people more onto the roll than they had originally targeted. So that's a very good thing. Now, consider that they're now targeting just 600,000 people plus. There's expectation that they are rolling, they know what they're doing. The Electoral Commission should definitely know what they're doing. The numbers tell its own story from the 2023 registration. So they should exceed that 2.7 million that I talked about that was picked up by the Housing Population Center. They should exceed that. But I also want to show you a bit more of the bigger picture when it comes to the numbers. We're talking about 17.9 million voters on the roll already. If you add what we know from the 2020 elections of 17 million registered voters who queued to cast a ballot, many of them, by the way, cast the ballot in 2020, compared to the 900,000 people who got onto the roll last year, we already have 17.9 million people already on the roll. And we want to add a bit more to it this year before the polls. And the Electoral Commission has rolled out this very elaborate process for that to happen. If you look at historically, though, we're seeing that as the population grows, more and more people come onto the roll, and we've seen that incremental numbers all the way to the 17 million I'm talking about in terms of the total number of registered voters coming up and queuing and wanting to register. The question is we don't know exactly how many people will be registering to vote this year, but this number is important. This will be the defining number when it comes to who wins or who loses this year's elections. And that is why there is already a lot of attention focused on the voter registration. If, as a political party, at the NPP or NDC, you fail to police this process properly, the elections can be lost from here. And that is why there's a lot of focus on this already. We've seen, for example, in one part of the country, in Dwaboso, there was an attack on an opponent, an electoral opponent, a political opponent there. That tells you the stakes are very, very high. The NDC and NPP in particular are playing a close eye on this particular issue. But there have been a lot of issues that I need to highlight also for you today. These are the sort of issues that first-time voters queuing to register today have had to contend with. We had a poor network that has been reported across the country. Connectivity was a challenge. We had unreliable power supply. We know we've having erratic power supply across the country over the last few weeks. It had an impact today as people went out there to try and cast a ballot. Also, the concerns that the Electoral Commission raised when they did a press conference telling us about the registration of non-Ghanaians is something that always happens when we have registrations such as this. And this is something that monitors, including the media, we are paying a very close eye and paying attention to and seeing if the measures that have been put in place right now can deal with that. We also have minor registration, for example, is another key thing that Electoral Commission, together with its partners, the police, are paying a close attention to this year. So we've seen that this has happened. This connectivity issues, power outages, malfunctioning registration devices. EC issued a statement late in the day telling us that they've managed to fix that particular problem that had cropped up across the country. So at least we are going into day 2, and the key question is, these areas, you see all the map in red, are the areas where the challenges were recorded. So you're talking about the Upper West region, for example, had the challenge there. You look at the Northern region, we had challenges there. In fact, there was a time that in the Northern region, the entire registration exercise was down and unable to run until the EC managed to fix it sometime around 12 noon thereabout. People had queued and tied and left. What is going to happen now? And the Electoral Commission will try and give us some clarity on this today. For those who missed today, knowing that this is a limited voter registration exercise, will the EC already consider extending the time for those who missed out today to register? Consider the polling booths, the registration centers will be moving around. You see the challenges in Ashanti region, Eastern, Volta, Western region, all in red today. The EC says you're very confident that the challenges have now been resolved going forward into tomorrow. This will no longer remain an issue. We'll see. But that's a key thing to watch tomorrow. Let's have this particular conversation tonight, and let's look at the big picture. Of course, today is day 1, but what do we really want to achieve? We want to achieve a credible but also inclusive register. And let's have a conversation. Electoral Commission will join me for a conversation. Kodeo will join me for a conversation. The political parties themselves will be monitoring what is your verdict on day 1 and what does today portend for the next few days as people go to register. You want to join me for a conversation right after this? PMS is brought to you by Syntex Tanks. It is strong, it is tough. Alomobiters experience greatness in every moment. Ghana AIDS Commission and Pepsodent, every smile matters. And every evening, I recommend Syntex tanks to you because it is the first to introduce a double layer tank, and now you can have as many layers as you want. Syntex tanks is first to introduce the white inner layer tanks, and they have 7 years warranty. Call them across the country on 0244 335 168 or shop online at syntexus.com. Are you strong? Are you tough? If you're sleeping tonight, make sure you brush your teeth, and you do so with Pepsodent because they have pro-fluoride and microcalcium ingredients, sealing tiny and invisible holes in your teeth. It prevents cavities, keeps your teeth strong and mouth healthy. It comes in different packs, 107G all the way down to 12G sachet. So you can always get something that you can afford. Pepsodent, every smile matters. Joining me for a conversation, Dr. Siribo Kwaku. He is the Director of Electoral Services at the Electoral Commission. Haruna Mohammed is the MPP Deputy General Secretary. Mustafa Bande is the Deputy NDC General Secretary. And we're joined by Kodeo's Gilfred Isiama. They've also deployed election registration monitors across the country. That is a Coalition of Domestic Election Observers. I want to start with Dr. Serebour Kwaku, who joins us now via phone for a brief chat. Doc, so I saw the statement from the Electoral Commission that you have resolved the challenges that happened today. But what really happened? What caused these challenges? Oh, goodness me. I may have lost him there. Did I lose him? Okay. We'll try and get him back on the line to understand this, but also receive the assurances that people need for the coming days and to build a credible register. In the studio with me is the Deputy General Secretary of the MPP. When the Serebour joins, we'll try and get clarity on the resolution of the issues. I know the MPP, you had monitors across the country too. Were you on the ground yourself monitoring?
Yes, I went to some few places in Greater Accra. I drew from Tamale yesterday night, having set up the pace for our party officers and agents to be able to monitor the exercise. I drove into Accra. I visited some few areas and got reports from the region as to how the registration process had gone.
How did it go?
Today it has been terrible because of the network. In the northern region, the last constituency that started very late was Tatale Sanguli, where the network system was more terrible in terms of the registration of voters. Besides that, there were many other constituencies that there were difficulties, and our Director of Election was on the ground to get an up-to-date report to us. We got some stability at some point in time, but if you look at the national total, as at the time I left.
What time was this?
Our room, the room that we use for monitoring, the data was not encouraging. If you multiply by 21 days, barely will you reach the target of...
Hold on for me, because Dr. Serebour Kwaku joins us now. Doc, what really was the challenge today? Hello, Dr. Kwaku.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Great to have you. What was the challenge today?
The major challenge was with respect to the internet connectivity.
Okay. And what caused that? Because I know EC had prepared quite sufficiently.
Yes, we have prepared with our main network, with CableNet and the rest. All the assurances were given. But when we wrote them up this morning, they were given us something. But by around 12 o'clock, most of the challenges were addressed. But now it seems everything is set. So going forward tomorrow, I don't think we have that issue.
I mean, so did the service providers explain why your equipment suffered that challenge?
They were working with the IT, who have not asked for the explanation.
Okay. Apart from the internet connectivity challenges, we also had reports of places where we had system failure, as in the machines themselves were not responsive. Software issues also, places where some of the printing could not happen.
I think all of them were brought down to the connectivity, because if the network to the equipment is not good, you cannot access the information for you to do the printing. But as I said, as at 2 o'clock, all the centers were registered, so I think they have been ready.
Okay, so the issue with the connectivity, you are absolutely certain that is, if you take that off the table, you are going to have a smoother process tomorrow?
Exactly so.
Okay. Now, in terms of the daily projections, what are you expecting today? What were you expecting today in terms of how many people you wanted to register on the day?
We didn't put any figure on the daily basis. What we are targeting is to register 623,000 before the end of the 21. But as for the daily one, it depends. Some of the days, the turnout will be very high. Some of the other days, people will not go. So the most important at the close of the day, how many are we registered? We do not put on a daily.
And let's explain this. The process that you've just begun today, it is rotational, is it not? I mean, it's not like you're going to stay in one place until 27th of May. the centers will be moving?
They're difficult to access areas where the thing will be moving. But these officers will have, the 268 will have permanent registration centers.
Okay. So, and those will be there for the entire period?
That is the offices, yes.
The district offices. Now,
yes. And the universities will be using 3 days, 3 days.
The universities will use 3 days?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So the question that Kodeo had asked today is, considering the challenges you face today, and many people were not able to register, they are left with 2 days. Would you consider an extra day then for them?
It depends. If at the close of the registration period, there are a lot of people in the queue, we'll get to know that and we'll address that.
So it is not off the table that the EC, depending on what happens on the third day, would consider an extension of the time?
Yes, if we are in the people are in the queue, we are finished on the third day, and the people are there, we'll do that. We'll cover them.
Good. Now, in terms of stakeholder engagements, though, and I know you do this on a daily basis with the agents on the ground, considering the challenges that you had today, what has been the interaction between your men and the agents on the ground? Has it been one filled with tension, or is it people understand generally what was happening?
I think we came out with a press release to explain the processes. And when the people were on the pre themselves, realized that we have taken off after 12 to 2 o'clock. So once there was smooth selling activities from 12 to 2, there were no other issues. Because once the people were there and the registration was going on, they know that we have rectified the anomalies or the glitches, and we are doing efforts.
Let's talk about one of the key challenges that you always face when you do a limited registration exercise like this, and you talked about it at your press conference. The challenge with minors coming to the polling centers to register. And I know the last time you did a registration, I know EC had evidence of some individuals they suspect to be minors who had been brought in to register. What can you tell us about that tonight on the first day, and also going to the next few days of the process?
We gave them up for registration, and I've done that for us. They know that we give them up to the police to investigate and come out sanctions and the rest. Yes.
In terms of the working with the police to ensure that you limit it or eliminate it, of course, which is the ideal for this registration exercise, what's the relationship like with yourself and the police on this, and the security agencies generally, to stop?
I think if you look at the previous registration, you are not seeing the presence of the police as it is now. This time we want to assure them that anybody who tries to try the rules will be turned over to the police for prosecution immediately. So the police are there in their to support us.
At these polling stations. So this is happening directly at the station. So you hand people over to the police at the stations?
Yes, once we come aware that you are trying to commit offense, we will hand you over to the police.
And I must actually confirm that, because we had reports today and videos of some of our reporters where in one particular center that I saw in Asokore Mampon, I believe, a lady came there and they realized that he had attempted to register a second time, and the police officers whisked her away and took her to the police station away from the polling center. So that was a very swift intervention by the officers there. This is something that you've discussed thoroughly, Dr. Sibro Kwaku, with the police beforehand.
Yes. We have to let them understand that the challenges we are having is that some people over-guarantee. The law says they should guarantee for not more than 10. Others were doing more than that. We have also realized that some people were guaranteeing for minors and foreigners. All this is when it comes up and it is established, we hand over the guarantee to the police.
Well, what about the political parties? Because they tend to be corporates in this. They bring in these young people, sometimes even foreigners, to try and register, getting people to become guarantee for people, contractors who come and guarantee for people. How are you relating to the parties on this matter?
If it is established that somebody is facilitating the registration of minors and foreigners, whether you are a politician or not, we will hand over to the police.
But it's also the question about considering the approach now that the report will be done at the center, police present, whisk you away. The chances are questions will be raised about the adequacy of the verification of an offense having been committed.
The adequacy of the verification of the offense.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing it at the station, would you have done enough to convince people that, well, you know that this referral is grounded on solid evidence?
No, so if it's established, people say we have been doing that, we are allowed to go. So somebody will come and when you interview the person will confess that I am 50 years or 16 and this man convinced me to come. This time we are saying that once that is established, we will hand you over to the police. People say when it happens, we allow it to go. There were instances where people tell to arrest more than once. Once it no go, we will allow you to go. This time we'll hand you over to the police.
And finally, going into tomorrow, and the parties are with me here in the studio, and a lot of people are waiting to go back in queue tomorrow. What assurance do you have for them across the country that tomorrow's process will begin on time and will be smooth without the hitches we experience today?
Yeah, if you look at today, they were all on time at 7 o'clock. But with the glitches, that's still a problem. And once all of them have been addressed, we are hoping that we will not encounter such challenges again and we'll go through such things. So we are hoping that tomorrow the subsequent one will be smooth sailing.
Dr. Serebour Quaiku, thank you very much. I want to bring in Mustapha Gbande. He is the Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. He joins us right now via Zoom. Mustapha, are you reassured?
Thank you very much, Evans, and good evening to our listeners. I've heard Dr. Quaiku speak, and for a moment, I was wondering the consistency of what he says. When they fail to arrest someone given bribe, how would they then be able to arrest a minor? But we'll see as the days unfold. The Electoral Commission itself gave the assurance that on the day of registration, they are going to deploy standby generators for the purposes of power fluctuation so that the exercise will not be interrupted. Will this one also be a technical challenge? Because those standby generators were not provided. Contrary to their letter, which says as at 12 o'clock noon, the technical situation was resolved. Even that is not true. And that is not honest to the realities on the ground. But yet again, we would like to believe that it is early days yet. That is just day one. It's been very abysmal. It's not encouraging. It's been very frustrating. We've had to endure to see a lot of young people who have left their school premises to sit at registration centers from morning to the evening, some of whom have not been able to register. People would have had to leave their businesses, sat at registration centers from morning to evening, most of whom could not register, but yet would have to go back far distance only to come back tomorrow. It is important that whereas we want to use communication to straighten the optics, which the Electoral Commission is engaged in, they will actually take it a bit further by ensuring that we avoid some of these difficulties that we get registrants into. I mean, this evening, we still had network changes. There are places where their own EC officers cannot account for the tally of registrations that have happened because of the number of machines that they have changed. In Esikado Canton, in the Western region, they used more than 6 registration machines, some of which were breaking down. They will bring new one. Party agents demanded serial numbers of the machines, and their own EC officials cannot provide that answer. And so the question then is, how did Electoral Commission adequately prepare for this exercise that on the day one, we are recording some of these huge, avoidable so-called technical challenges.
He explained that they receive assurances from the service providers and as part of the preparation, except that when D-Day came, there were challenges that they could not explain. So it's not really their fault, is it? I mean, you're relying on a network connectivity. That is not within the domain of the East Central Commission.
Well, it will obviously be their fault, but I'm just saying that it is early days yet. This is day one. So, of course, we will associate ourselves to their challenges to say that day one of everything, they are born to be challenges, and we will master our hands as we go.
Yeah.
But will they be able to extend? Will they be able to make provisions for people who have lost the opportunity to register today?
Which is the question. Question I put to him, and let me put to Gilbert, because CODEO, the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, already today, I've already called on the EC to factor that in to the planning going forward. And Gilbert, you heard Serebo Kwaku say, well, they can't take the decision just yet, although they admit there were challenges on day one. They want to look at what happened on the third day in the universities, for example, in far-to-reach areas. And then a decision will be taken as at the time whether to add an additional day. Guilford.
Well, Evans, I don't think we have much time for a decision to be made on this. And just to make a correction, for the hard-to-reach areas, the Electoral Commission is doing this exercise within 2 days. It's the universities that the exercise is going to happen within 3 days. So if we've lost, in some places, a day, they lost a whole day. In others, they've lost like 25% of the time allocated to them for this registration. I don't think we have to wait, for the second day before the commission makes decision on that. I mean, already, some people wouldn't even want to be engaged in this registration exercise. A lot of effort has to be made to mobilize people to participate in this. So when these challenges come, and then we don't have very good feedback, quick communication to the people, I think it's going to be a challenge. Report that we received from some of our observers indicated clearly that in some places you have about 100 people in a queue. So how are you able to register even all the 100 people who you weren't able to register on the first day, and also register additional ones? These are clear indications that in those areas, the commission will not be able to finish. So the better, the faster they communicate some of these issues to the general public, I think the best it will be for all of us all.
Haruna, do you support an extension of the time for these areas, schools, far-to-reach areas?
Evans, there has not been a perfect system anywhere. We have gone through this system on a couple of times during our electioneering process. In all those situations, these challenges come, just as we've said. In terms of network challenge, it's an external factor to the Electoral Commission. It's not an internal factor, which they absolutely has no control over. But in terms of machine stoppage or the inefficiencies in the usage of the machine becomes an internal factor, because definitely these machines might have been tested before they have been deployed for usage.
So your men picked up on machine failure too?
If there is machine failure, I'm just distinguishing the fact that if there is an internal factor, which they have control over. But when we talk about network challenge, it is something that they don't have because it's an external factor. We're all in this country when 2 or so cables were being damaged, and we had to go off data coverage for some time. So in these particular instances, I believe that we need to constantly engage the Electoral Commission in terms of the numbers that is flowing in terms of the registrations. And I believe that at the end of the day, there must be some sort of extension if there need be, because at the end of the day, if the numbers that is coming in within the 20-21 days is not that encouraging, and political parties definitely, if you look at the calendar, there is a time period that IPAC will still meet before this particular exercise ends. if there is that need, then political parties will call on the electoral.
So there's an IPAC meeting that has been called. I mean, that is within this period.
Yeah, there will be an IPAC
before the 27th when this ends.
Before the 27th ends, because
so for you that will be an opportunity to review the process. So collectively can take a decision.
Sure.
What to do.
Political parties should be offered the opportunity, because I checked the calendar that was given us, and there's an IPAC meeting within the period.
But the challenge you have, the way this has been rolled out, universities will have 3 days. Guilford just clarified that for how to reach areas, will have 2 days before the thing moves. So by the time you even sit for the IPAC meeting, if the EC themselves are not taking the decision, people would have a challenge in registering, have they not?
Yes, those particular challenges, EC can always make, they can revise their notes in terms of those particular areas. Remember, in the universities, we don't know the number of students who have not gotten the opportunity to register. So depending upon the numbers, that would tell whether the 3 days is sufficient or not. For me, I'm of the opinion that even when the 3 days is finished, we don't intend to have these machines to be used again within the registration period, so that at least we'll be able to monitor the numbers that is used for the registration. For example, if a machine is gone to the UDS at the Tamale campus, at the end of the day, nobody from the other electoral areas that are closer to the university, besides the student body, should be allowed to register on that machine. That is my opinion, because there is an offer that is made to the hard-to-reach areas, and the district offices has been made available to them, so that it can be restricted in such a manner that we can monitor to see how many students have been able to be registered on that particular platform. But I don't know how this is open, whether other people within the community will enter into the university to do registration or not. But I wish that this is limited to the student base. Once it's done, 3 days is done, those machines must be closed, data uploaded, and political parties are given data on this particular unused machines.
And you heard Mustafa Gbande make a case, Esikado Kitan, for example, where because of the faulty machines, they had to change some of them and bring some in. I think you're also touching on that same issue.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. If there are issues of machine breakage, that means that it is an inefficiency.
Yeah, but the main concern he had was when you're replacing those machines, questions around the serial numbers so you can track it, what is going on onto that.
Political parties are giving, when you are going to start registration, there is a start day report that you would have to be given, and there is an end-of-day report. So if a machine is being changed, definitely the data that sits on that particular machine should be printed, giving data to the agents that are at the registration center. So if a new machine comes, the details of these new machines has to be taken, and then you also ask the printout of the machine at the start. That is the start of day report and then end of day report. So if these things are not being done, there are legitimate concerns that political parties has to raise to ensure that the right thing is done to deepen the transparency and to also allow people to be much sure of what goes on within the electoral system.
And Mustafa, this opportunity at IPAC to possibly review the process, extend the time which you are in favor of, is it one that your NDC believes will make a difference, considering that there's several moving parts to this registration? The universities will have a very limited time. They now have 2 days to go. The IPAC meeting may come too late.
Evans, I think that this matter falls under the administrative mandate of the Electoral Commission. When they brought a calendar and briefed IPAC, for which was discussed, we never anticipated that network providers will fail on day one. So if that have occasion, it is inherent for the Electoral Commission within its own mandate to be able to analyze the situation and advance a prudent decision. The ultimate is that we should not do anything that would disenfranchise Ghanaians from having the opportunity to register. And so if that objective is what the Electoral Commission is pursuing, then it means that a call for extension, a possible admission of same and acceptance of same by the Electoral Commission is a good cause. We do not have to wait until an IPAC meets so that a registration date is extended for which all political parties will be partaking in any way, because we are not going to hide in a room.
Oh, I lost him there. Let's bring in Guilford.
Again, foreigners.
It's just back. I'll bring it back in. Yeah. Yes, proceed. Yes, proceed. I can hear you. Hello, Mustafa. Okay.
Evans, you know, I caused these problems for you because he has always been an Accra Deputy General Secretary. So when I accused him on Joy platform, so he decided to move to the field, and that's why he's having bad network. My report on the meeting of the IPAC was not to say that we should wait when we go to IPAC. I am saying that per the calendar that is given by the Electoral Commission, if you check on the 15th of May, there will be an IPAC meeting. So once political parties are raising these matters, when that time is due, which is still within the registration period, definitely political parties will have the opportunity to raise these matters. In the last registration that was done for the assembly elections, it was not through IPAC that the Electoral Commission extended. It is an administrative duty. So when it is done on them, not only political parties, the media fraternity, the other bodies such as CODEO and other observing institutions can also call for some of these matters to be extended. So it is an administrative matter, but if an opportunity is offered for all political parties on a platform such as IPAC, this can also be discussed.
I mean, Guilford, the Coalition of Domestic Election Observers, when you deployed your people today, I mean, we've talked about the challenges, but I'm curious. Last week when the EC did a press conference, they were very particular about this persistent challenge we have with registrations where people are barged in there to go and register. A lot of them are minors, but also people guaranteeing for multiple individuals. We've heard Cyril Kwaku say that the approach this time is different. You have the police on standby, and it's true. We saw one case, for example, where I talked about a woman was moved quite along to the police station. What did your men notice on the ground? Do you see compliance, full compliance, from the political players to the rules and regulations and laws governing this process?
Well, Evans, from the first day report, these things, our observers file them as critical incidents. And I must admit that we are still going through and reviewing and verifying the critical incidents that observers send in their report. So I won't be able to comment on happenings on the first day. Once we are done reviewing the critical incidents, we will try and see if some of these issues came up. But generally, the issues that we received, the critical incidents, have got to do with the network challenges, some areas that the Electoral Commission communicated that they were going to have this exercise. To our surprise, we sent some observers to the field only to realize that the dates were different from what we had. So these challenges, I think, are very costly.
I mean, and let's expand on that. Are you saying that you went to the locations advertised by the Electoral Commission and the registration centers were not there?
I mean, certainly. So when you take a place like German South, the observers were very proactive. So we got the list from the Electoral Commission, and we have done our distribution. We use random sampling, so observers are going, to different places. So some of them were very proactive to go to the Electoral Commission's office to find out about the registration centers and the movements, only to realize that some of the dates that we knew registration were going to take place were different from what the district officers and their movement planned, So these are very costly, and we just pray that the commission will be more transparent in how they spread some of this information to avoid the kind of cost that we, the observers and observation groups, also incur to also ensure that we bring more transparency and credibility and legitimacy to this process.
But even beyond that, right, if there's a communication and people are following that, it's also the possibility that you are, is going to affect the people's desire to register. You're going to disenfranchise people from getting onto the roll because they'll be using a particular, schedule only also to get there to register, that they don't find that the booths are there already. Isn't that the bigger challenge?
Well, Evans, I don't want to go on that tangent.
Okay.
I don't know whether on the grounds, whether the commission had communicated
that. Okay.
People in those areas. But for us, as Cordeo, I think it's coming up to be a very expensive challenge for us.
Let's talk about the big picture quickly before I try to see if we can still get Mustafa Bande into the conversation. Fundamentally, we want a credible voters register, but one that is also inclusive so that we can have as many young voters who've just turned 18 onto this as possible. Knowing the processes that the Electoral Commission put in place before now, are you confident that this process, by the time it ends on the 27th, will guarantee a credible register?
Well, this is, as they say, early days. We may see a lot of improvement over time. So I don't think it will be fair on our side to judge the Electoral Commission based on what we have seen on the first day. But at the same time, I don't think it will help if the Commission also refused to make amends, especially in those areas where people were in queue, they couldn't register, and we are very certain that within the 2 days dedicated for this process, those who are even in hard-to-reach areas where it is very difficult for people to get access to the registration centers to register, if the Commission doesn't make any amends and correct the wrongs that have been done today, I don't think that will also be fair.
Mustafa, that's the same question to you. In the lead up to today, the Electoral Commission had told us that they've been very transparent at IPAC, opening their books, letting all the parties in on the preparations towards today. What's your confidence level that by the time that we end on the 27th, this will deliver? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay,
yeah,
let's.
I can hear you now. Repeat your question again.
Yeah, very quickly. We just need to wrap up briefly. What's your confidence level that this process that has begun today, knowing what you know about the preparations, will deliver a very credible register at the end of the 27th of May?
I am confident in the Ghanaians who are desirous to register so that they can be able to vote. But if you ask me whether or not I have confidence in the Electoral Commission, I do believe that they are capable of doing a good job. But I cannot at this point say whether the Electoral Commission of Ghana, the entire commission, is willing to do fair with Ghanaians, is willing to do just with Ghanaians, and is willing to be professional. That I cannot say, because there are a lot of unanswered credibility questions. There are a lot of unanswered professionalism questions. There are a lot of unanswered administrative preparedness questions, which the Electoral Commission have not yet answered those questions. And of course, the prevailing circumstances that we find ourselves, one cannot say that he's confident in the current Electoral Commission. But I do believe that they can do better.
We lost him there. What about you? Well, what's your you've worked very close to the Electoral Commission at IPAC, etc. Confident that this will deliver?
I'm very confident in the Electoral Commission of Ghana, and I believe that for us to have a credible register, it doesn't take the Electoral Commission alone. It takes the political parties. When you talk about registration of minors, basically it is we, the political parties, that mobilizes the people to come and register. And we stand in to defend the ages of this person. So it takes all of us, not only the Electoral Commission, to build a credible register. And it also borders on the mindset. If you prepare your mind that the Electoral Commission will not be fair, will not be that, will not be this, it doesn't contribute to credibility. It rather contributes to your mindset of not getting what you want. And in terms of electioneering process, nobody gets what you want because you don't know what the agency that leads in this particular process exactly what is going to do. But you have to continue to persevere, continue to contribute, continue to make sure that the right thing is done. And at the end of the day, we will all have a very credible and then successful elections and then registration processes. And this is what we all look out for. The Electoral Commission of Ghana has always set a standard, and they have done it over and over and over the years. And I believe and have confidence in them that they will be able to deliver these elections.
Okay, I mean, I'm actually focusing on the registration, whether this will deliver a credible register.
Yes,
You're confident that this...
So, you know, we in the MPP have always made sure that credible register is the key. And that is why we wrote the stolen verdict. That is why we came with a biometric system, and the NDC went against it in the 2020. Even in the 2012, when we brought it, they went against it. In the 2020, when we challenged that there were minors and what have you, we went to court and all that, they were not comfortable with that. So we have always wanted to have a credible register, and this is what the MPP has always been looking at for. We don't want to have a filthy register that would produce something that we have to challenge in court and all that. We are always prepared to make sure that we contribute our quota to.
Thank you, Harold. Thank you, gentlemen. At the end of the process, we'll do a review. We'll come back and assess how the process had gone. You want to stay with us. This is your election headquarters, and we'll keep a very close eye on this as it evolves. It's the biggest, I guess, activity before the election itself on December 7th. And if you have not queued yet to register, and you just turned 18 or you don't have a register, you don't have an ID card for whatever reason, you want to do so. It is your civic responsibility. Go and get a card so you can exercise that responsibility on December 7th. Enjoy the rest of the evening.